Okay, we're ready to now, we're gonna learn how to multiply radicals, okay? We did adding and subtracting last time, we're gonna multiply them now. So here's how it goes. Here's the good news. Root 3 times root 6, you can multiply them together and put them underneath a radical. Now let me point this out. Root 3 plus root 6, you can't just put them under a thing and call it root 3 plus 6, root 9. It does not work that way with addition and subtraction, okay? It's not just root 3 plus 6. It doesn't, that's not how it works. But it does work that way with multiplication and division, which is great. Because root 3 times root 6, you can turn that into just square root 3 times 6, which is square root 18. So it's nicer with multiplication actually. Okay. Then what do you do to simplify square root 18? Well, you go square root pretty, square root ugly, just like we've been doing. What's pretty about 18? 9. What's ugly? 2. Remember, square root 9 is 3, so it's 3 root 2. So, root 3 times root 6 is 3 root 2. Okay. 5 root 3 squared. That means 5 root 3 times 5 root 3. Or it also works this way. If you've got multiplication here, you can distribute the square to each of these. Now, if it was square root of 5 plus root 3 squared, you cannot just go 5 squared plus square root 3 squared. We're going to do that in a little bit, but this is not how you would do this problem. You'd have to do, this is a little more difficult than that because it's stuck by a plus. If it's stuck by a plus or a minus, you cannot just distribute the squares. But guess what? The good news is with multiplication like we have here, you can distribute the squared. So really, 5 root 3 squared you can think of as 5 squared times square root 3 squared. Okay, well 5 squared is 25, so this is 25. Now what is square root 3 squared? Well, you can think of it two ways. You can think of it as square root 3 times square root 3 is square root 3 times 3, square root 9, which is 3, and that is correct, so it's 3. But the other way to look at it is, what does square root 3 mean? Square root 3 means the number you times by itself to get 3 for an answer. So if you take the number you times by itself to get 3 for an answer, times itself, you would get 3 for the answer. So either way, you could, the square root 3 squared is going to be 3. So this is going to become 25 times 3, which is 75, and there you go. So wait a minute. Wait a minute. What am I actually saying? Am I saying if you were on the football team and your jersey number was 75, am I saying that you could actually put that on your jersey? Yes, that is what I'm saying. Okay, anyways, moving on. Okay. 2 times root 8x times root 4x. See how these are both under radicals? This one's not. So we could do the same idea we did here, combine the radicals together, but not the 2. We leave the 2 sitting out because it is not under a root. So it's going to be square root of 8 times 4 is 32. X times x is x squared. So I can make these guys into square root 32x squared. Okay. Now, what does that mean? Well, we go 2 times root pretty, root ugly. Okay. What's pretty about 32? 16. What's ugly? 2. Okay, great. What's pretty about x squared? Kind of like me. Ain't nothing ugly about it, right? It's all pretty. Cha-ching. So, here we go. Remember, even numbered powers are pretty because the square roots has a 2 there. So any even power, second power, fourth power, sixth power, eighth power, you're going to divide them by the root. So you divide them by 2. So any even power is going to be pretty. And then the one, if it's an odd power, the one left over goes on the ugly side. Okay, so anyways, here we go. So that's going to be 2 times square root of 16x squared. Square root of 16 is 4. Square root of x squared is just x, right? X to the 2. Remember, there's a little 2 there. So it's x to the 2 divided by 2 is x to the first power. So square root of 16x squared is 4x times root 2. Now, 2 times 4x times root 2. The 2 times 4 is 8, so you get 8x root 2, and there you go. That's the answer. Alrighty. Now, this guy, right here. This is just distributive property. Look, this is stuck by a plus or minus. So I basically have to distribute the root 2 to both of those guys. So look what I'm going to get. Root 2 times 5. We don't call that root 2 5. We call it 5 root 2. We always put the number first. Plus root 2 times root 12 is going to be root 2 times 12 is 24, like that. So we just distributed the root 2. 5 root 2 doesn't simplify because root 2 doesn't have anything pretty in it. So it just stays 5 root 2 plus root pretty, root ugly. What's pretty about 24? How about 4? What's ugly? 6. And remember, root 4 is 2. This is 2. So it's going to be 5 root 2 plus 2 root 6. Root 2, root 6 are not the same. They don't combine together. So you can't, they have to be exactly the same root part to combine them. So that's as simple as it gets. Okay, now, jumping over to these guys. We've got basically like a binomial times a binomial. You probably recognize this as FOIL, right? That's what we would, like if it's x plus 5 times x minus 7 or something like that, we do FOIL. Well, this is the same idea. You're doing FOIL. It's like a binomial times a binomial. So how does FOIL work? If you remember what FOIL stands for, first, outside, inside, last. So first means I take the 2 first things and multiply them. 4 times 3 is 12, right? Outside means I go this guy times this guy. 4 times negative root 5, so positive times negative is negative. 4 times root 5 is 4 root 5, negative 4 root 5, okay? Inside is positive times positive will be positive. Root 5 times 3 is 3 root 5. And then finally, last over here is going to be positive times negative is negative. Now think about this. Square root 5 times square root 5. Remember the number that multiplies by itself to be 5 times the number that multiplies by itself to be 5. That's going to be 5. Or you can think of it as square root 5 times square root 5 is square root 25. Either way, it's 5. And it's minus because it's positive times negative, so that it's a negative 5. Now, the good news here is the fact that 12 and negative 5 are both integer numbers, so they could just combine together. 12 and minus 5 is 7, right? Minus 4 root 5 plus 3 root 5 is minus 1 root 5, or just minus root 5. And there's the answer. These guys combine, and these guys combine. Okay. Well, moving on. This is exactly the same thing. It's going to be a FOIL problem. So, let's see. Root 3 times root 6, that's first, right? That's going to be root 18, which I know can be simplified. I'm going to do that in the next step. Then outside is going to be positive times negative is negative. Root 3 times 4 is 4 root 3. Inside is positive times positive is positive. 5 times square root 6 is 5 root 6. And then last is positive times negative is negative. 5 times 4 is just 20, like that. Okay, so far so good. Okay, this, and this all cannot be simplified because root 3 doesn't simplify, root 6 doesn't simplify, but root 18 does. So let's figure this one out. It's going to be square root 9 times square root 2, which is 3 root 2, minus 4 root 3, plus 5 root 6, minus 20. Okay, none of that combines together. None of that combines together. Wow. That's the opposite of being lucky. That's like if I were inclined to go buy lottery tickets, I wouldn't buy one today because, oh my gosh, just about the worst thing that can happen just happened to me. I don't think the luck is with me today. Okay? Anyways, that's about halfway through what we're gonna do today. I got a few more examples to go. So I'm gonna erase these and continue on. Okay? You can put it on the